Welcome, I'm Bastet. I'll be running your operation. The project's official name is the Adventurers' Research of Abnormal Civilian Experiences, or Project Arrowace for short, to investigate the unusual occurrences that have been happening everywhere recently. I've hired you all for your hands-on experiences.
I'm going to be honest, I think we should run.
I don't know, I'm not a wizard in real life.
Tentacles belong in the ocean!
I also lost all my food, so Delphi, in a few hours you might start looking really delicious.
Okay. You can't just kind of hand wave and say, oh yes, it's clearly from another plane of reality, without that implying a lot about a very powerful wizard doing it, or a university of powerful wizards doing it, or a god doing it.
It lets us know that when these other anomalies have been happening, it's potentially due to the use of temporal or spatial magic.
Who are you? I saw you in some kind of dream, but I think there's more to it than that. We need to talk.
I can't tell you exactly why I did all the things I did, but I did them. Okay?
Can everyone please roll for initiative?
Oh, I nearly cussed so hard.
Thank you for assuring I could hear you.
Amazing.
Welcome to Deck of Many Aces, an actual play podcast made with actual asexuals. I don't know what the next line is. We're a group of people who identify
really
somewhere
annoying.
on the asexual or aromantic spectrum. Is that it?
Playing a game of D&D. A 5th edition.
Yeah, we're playing D&D, but we're not doing that today.
No.
Woohoo!
But you've got to
every
tell them the
PC's
twist. You've got to tell them the twist, Chloe. What's the twist?
Yes. The twist is that each character's past, present, and future is based on a card drawn from the deck of many things.
Ooh.
I am Chloe. I'm not a DM because we're not playing today. I'm a facilitator, I guess.
Wow.
I use she, her pronouns. Today, we are going to be discussing our characters. We're going to have...
You use she, her pronouns today.
Today only.
But on Wednesdays, I'm they, them. Yeah.
But yes, today we are going to be recapping the story so far. We're going to be discussing our characters and giving you guys a nice little wrapped up present of all the information you need to dive straight on in. And with me today is... That's a Rendezvous with Destiny one. But I'm using it. With me today, I have...
Oh, hello, it's me. I'm Am. I played Tohsya Atherdale, the party battlemaster fighter. I'm so tired.
I don't know who is next.
I think it would be you.
I think it's me. Hi, I'm Ellie. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns, and I am usually the DM, but I'm a passenger princess in today's episode, which is great. I love
Temporary
that.
abdication.
It's very nice. Yeah.
A temporary coup.
Yeah.
By me. Mwahaha.
I think the baton will be passed to me at some point, but not for now.
Never. It's mine now. Anyway.
I think that just leaves me. I'm Katie. I use she or they pronouns, and I normally play Morgan, who is a tiefling wizard.
Yes, Eiriol can't be here tonight, unfortunately, but they use she, her, and they, them pronouns. And Eiriol plays Delphi, the Grove Folk Warlock, which is a homebrew race.
She's a
that
tree person.
Eiriol has
A very
devised
tall tree
completely.
person.
Yes, a tree person, absolutely. So why don't we start with a nice little recap of all the stories so far? And this is really fun for those of you that may or may not have heard the podcast before, but also if, like me, you engage with media in a way that, although you really enjoy it, you sometimes just immediately forget it.
I was going to say, to be fair, like when I was first writing this, I was like, oh, you know, I'll give people a timestamp that they can skip to if they don't want to listen to the recap. But I fully had to go back and listen to episodes to remind myself what has happened, and I wrote this. I would listen, especially if you're a long time listener, because it's
and
been
definitely if you're a member of the cast.
This podcast.
Yeah, we need to remember our own history.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. I'm Chloe. I play Raina.
Oh my god, Chloe!
I didn't mention who I played. I mentioned my name. I play Raina Riftwood, who is a tabaxi bard and now also a rogue. Little multi-class there. This is already carnage. I believe Ellie has a nice little recap.
I do. The same level as carnage as a normal day.
Yeah, this is pretty normal, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ellie, take it away.
Yeah, I will. So, previously on Deck of Many Aces,
Dun, dun, dun.
We begin in Attis Orbis, home of the Catgirls, or Catgirl City as it is sometimes named. 4 intrepid adventurers are gathered to work for a government agency, the Adventurers' Research of Abnormal Civilian Experiences, or Project Arrowace for short.
Same brain.
Yes. Punnery abounds. The team is made up of Tohsya Athdale. I was expecting Am to cheer then, but I heard nothing from her, so...
Oh, yay!
Tohsya Athdale, lukewarm silence. Toz is a young heiress...
We love her,
yeah, she's great. She's a young heiress warrior, keen to prove herself and carry out her late mother's wishes. We have Raina Riftwood.
That's me.
That's you, a tabaxi bard swept from her own time into the future under mysterious circumstances, who's searching for her younger brother.
She got Captain America'd, but it's totally a unique...
Yeah, she got legally totally distinct storied.
Yeah. I don't carry a shield.
You don't carry a shield. We've got Delphinium, or Delphi for short, who is a grove folk, which is, like we said, is like a tree person, whose career as a botanist has been overshadowed by the strange crystal she carries and the powers it bestows. So, brackets, she's a warlock. And Morgan Serenity Aldridge.
I think her name is also Weralta Calbean and also Larkspur. So many names.
It is. Delphinium is a larkspur. That's the Latin name for a larkspur.
Right.
And then Weralta Calbean, I think, is her name in the language of grove folk people.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then I think Delphinium is the translation of it. And then Delphi for short. And Morgan Serenity Aldridge, the outcast child of an aristocratic tiefling family fallen on hard times, who is on sabbatical from her academic career as a time magic scientist.
Woo!
There's also a fact about Morgan that Katie never forgets to mention.
Which is that she can fly.
Yeah, there we go.
She also has a familiar who I
wings.
definitely don't forget, ever.
People considering making a PC that can fly. It comes in less use than you would think.
Yeah, because the DM immediately goes, right, okay, I've got to factor this in for every scenario so that it doesn't become a completely broken character trait. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Also, I'll be honest, I forgot about Green until about 3/4 of the way through this recap, and you can tell. Yes, so we've got our 4 adventurers. Their boss, who is a tabaxi called Bastet, explains to them that the known world has seen an uptick in strange happenings, and they have been hired to investigate. Their first stop, some crystal monoliths known as the Eternal Shards, where a child was seen floating several feet in the air.
Many high feet in the air.
When they arrive, the child is nowhere to be seen, and no one seems that bothered about it, to be honest. Our heroes end up defending a nearby town from beasts seemingly appearing at random from other planes of existence. When they head back to Catgirl City, Morgan gets in touch with an academic called Dr. Delaware, hoping to find some answers to this weird planar business. A few days later, she hears back from his assistant telling her that unfortunately, Dr. Delaware has been murdered.
Dun, dun, dun.
Meanwhile, Raina visits her old captain, who's now an old man, and he explains it has been 70 years since she disappeared, and he hasn't seen her brother, Seth, since he retired some years ago. So the girls head to Clockwork City to try to solve Dr. Delaware's murder. They hitch a ride with a group of halfling gnomes called the Roaming Herds, and they're like artificers with these metallic horses that they use as mode of transport. Toz takes a shine to their leader, Tamara.
Toz and Tamara sitting in a
Very cute. Not doing anything because this is an Ace podcast.
Yeah. They're just sitting and holding hands, having a nice, cute time.
I'm trying to think. There's blushing has more letters than KISS, but that's essentially what they're doing. So en route, they are sidetracked by a city of fairy tale castles that has randomly appeared. As
one does.
They wade in to deal with a hostage situation, which turns out to be a time-based misunderstanding. Iona, a Loxodon warrior who went missing in this area a decade ago, is arguing with Vega Camarius, an elven businessman whose castle-building venture isn't due to begin for another 10 years. It becomes clear that they've both been displaced from their times, and it isn't obvious how to put them back. The castles begin to shake, and the party retrieve Iona, but have to leave Vega behind as he has fallen victim to the glare of one of his own pet
Oh, we
basilisks.
tragically have to leave him behind despite our best efforts. Whoa.
If I remember correctly, we were carrying his statue out.
We chose to leave him.
And then we're
We
like,
decided
we'll leave
that
him. We actively were like,
if the area was going back to where it was when it was from, that
we
it
made an
would,
educated guess that we were like, if he dies, he dies.
I mean, I think it was reasonable.
And so the party's cavalier
It was a
attitude
reasonable
to death.
supposition that would send him back where he needs to go, but we won't find out for 10 years, lol.
He was also an absolute one. I'm not allowed to say on this podcast,
Yeah, he was not a nice
so-
man.
He was annoying.
He's a slimy little capitalist.
As we all know, that's
meanie.
the worst crime one can commit, being slimy. Metaphorically, you might be literally slimy.
Boy, I was going to say slugs haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, slugs are cool. Capitalists, not so much. Sorry, Toz.
Iona shares 2 letters with Tohsya, written by her late mother, and one of them is familiar to her, but the other was never delivered, and it's not clear why. So it's a little fun Toz tidbit.
Hee hee.
Tee-hee-hee. Finally, in Clockwork City, the girls solve Dr. Delaware's murder with the help of Felicity, his student. It becomes clear that the culprit is Mara, a PhD student with a grudge, aided by the nefarious arms dealers, the Turin brothers. While investigating, Raina gets arrested for using charming magic, which is illegal in the city.
I didn't mean to.
Yes, accidentally. I'm accidentally charming.
Raina didn't mean to.
And therefore it's not a crime, right?
Chloe definitely
Oh,
did.
yeah, I meant to.
While Raina is locked up overnight, she dreams of the face of a centaur who she remembers, although where from is a mystery. She wakes up singing a strange and otherworldly song with the entire prison under her spell.
Also an accident.
Also an accident, yes. Important to clarify. More accidents.
Happen.
Poor
It's
Raina.
totally normal. Nothing to worry about.
To charm an entire facility full of people. All good and fine.
Fine.
It's fine.
Felicity grants the party access to research and materials, and they learn that time and space magic are related. And although there are many theories about how time and time travel work, it's been observed that time is working differently now to how it has been before. This is like an observable scientific phenomenon, that time is acting differently in recent months. Raina confides in the party that she disappeared 70 years ago, and she tells them it's
And everyone pretends to be shocked.
Everyone pretends to be shocked, but The reason behind her disappearance is because she investigated a strange crevice on an isolated island and fell through. Although, are you laughing because of crevice?
I'm just remembering all the jokes we made about it at the time.
I tried so hard not to call it a hole in its backstory.
This isn't much better.
The problem is there's very few words for hole that aren't funny.
Yeah,
I can think of a few.
Abyss.
She fell through the hole, but she doesn't remember what happened after that, and the party decided it was probably a good idea to investigate this island and see if it would reveal more answers. The DM did not prepare for this, and so then had to write a whole arc
And did a very
that they
good
had
job
not
too.
previously thought of. Thank you. On the way back to Catgirl City, Delphi discovers that her crystal-wielding hand has been seemingly infected with a dark purplish mould, and Raina used the message spell to try and contact the centaur from her dream, and receives only a long and angry scream in response.
Sending, sorry.
Sending, thank you. Sending spell. Oops. I know D&D. I'm a competent DM who knows the spells.
You don't need to, they're written down. It's the point of the books.
That's why. And you guys know.
No, we
That's
don't.
what
We
we're
always
here
Google
for.
them.
The point is, we make D&D accessible and friendly for everyone, and that's the important thing. So, back from Clockwork City, the girls acquire a ship to head over to the island. After fighting off some giant sharks,
Failing.
they crash into the shores of
Failing
the
to fight
island.
off the giant sharks.
Hey, you guys did a
They're
decent
my
job.
friends.
No, we didn't kill them.
Yeah,
we just
Toz
ran
killed
off.
one.
Toz killed one, yeah.
Oh yeah. So the girls tried to send a message for help, but it was shot out of the sky by Jetsam, a protective water genasi, and her twin Flotsam, an air genasi.
We should probably mention the way we send messages with a
Oh yeah.
robot raven that was
Mechanical
given
bird.
to us by our boss, Bastet.
Robot ravens are a thing.
It's pretty sick.
That is called something that I have now forgotten.
It's a messenger, carrier raven.
Carrier raven.
There you go.
Messenger raven?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
carrier raven like carrier pigeon, something like that. Yeah, little mechanical raven, which is like a combination, the locate person spell and what's the spell that allows you to record like a short message?
Magic mouth?
Magic Mouse. So that message gets shot out of the sky, and then the twin genasi leave the party to have an investigate of the hole, and the party head up to the summit of the island. Raina remembers the whole glowing string. I can't get through this with the whole thing. Raina remembers it glowing strangely and looking otherworldly, but the hole they investigate is kind of unremarkable. They can't see all the way to the bottom on account of the crystals that jut out of the opening, but Green, Morgan's parrot familiar, who finally becomes relevant to the plot, flies to the bottom and finds nothing but a watery
It's done other
cave.
stuff before. It's done other stuff before then.
It does do plenty of stuff. That was the point at which I went, the plot does not make sense without you having a familiar. This is actually deeply important. Flot and Jet return with their parents, who take the party to an island cloaked in illusion magic.
A whole island.
The genasi deliberately kept themselves apart from the warmongering and greedy civilizations the party know well. They go to the island's seer, who inspects the flute and sees a figure who looks just like Raina emerging from the crystals, saying, "I have to hide the flute from Lenanon." It's important to note, though, that the seer sees this from several decades ago, even before Raina's disappearance. So I think we said like 120 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So someone who looks like Raina but isn't Raina. The party asks the seer to inspect a number of items. Toz asks to check in on Iona, who can't be seen with the seer's powers, and her uncle, who is supposedly hiding something from her. On inspecting Delphi's crystal, the seer has a dramatic reaction and is blinded by the crystal's otherworldly power, and also possibly has brain damage. We didn't go into that. The party ran away.
He bravely ran away.
I was about to say just like fireworks.
The party seek answers in the planar whirlpool in the centre of the island. The whirlpool shows them visions. Toz sees a path split in multiple directions, ending with her uncle. Morgan sees the city of Antibra slowly recovering from the ravages of floods. Delphi sees Shamblrot, a nightmarish figure from fairy tales, and Raina sees nothing at all. Finally, the group all see a disturbing vision. Different planes flashing before their eyes, and in each plane a hole in the very fabric of reality, a hole in the shape of a small figure. They see the eternal shards, the crystal monoliths they encountered at the beginning of their journey, shifting and changing, moving up and down until they are all the same height. Stunned by their confusing revelations, they head back to the mainland for a performance review. This is the bit where it's maybe going to be slightly spoilers for people. So Tohsya's goes mostly without incident.
Model worker.
Just how I like it.
Just, yeah.
Mostly fine.
Mostly fine.
Just a little bit spicy.
Yeah, just a little bit of favoritism from the boss, maybe. The others don't have such an easy time. Morgan is handed a letter stamped with a crest, the contents of which are still a mystery to everyone but Morgan, that is. Raina is thoroughly scolded for her jailbreak incident, and Delphi's review is hijacked by the Delphi of the Keys and Crossings, the otherworldly entity who's instructing Delphi via the crystal. The Delphi leaves our young warlock with a message. The pins are shifting, and a riddle. Do you know when a key is not a key? Can you pick a lock out of a crowd? Bastet asks the group to travel to Navrosh, an elven city plagued with strange figures that keep appearing and disappearing. They travel across the mountains and stumble into a dragon's lair, which they then wake up the dragon and had to fight it, although, really, they probably could have run away.
Hey, I tried to run away.
Yeah. But it's almost like the players who are controlling the characters were itching for a fight.
Funny that.
We killed the dragon!
Yeah, they killed the dragon, but before that...
And then Ellie made us look into the next village and was like, the dragon was definitely bad, don't worry.
Don't have moral feet quandaries about dragon murder. Importantly, though, during the fight, Morgan calls out to her god, Calacta, the god of truth and time, and receives no response.
Yep.
Seems like a Morgan problem. Not something standard, just...
There is a good bit of Morgan who
specific.
thinks this is just a skill issue. Like, she hasn't tried that spell before.
That knowing Ellie, probably not the case. Would be very funny if that was true.
That gives me ideas, something to do, actually.
Morgan is the opposite of whatever God's favourite is.
In the Dragon Horde, Tohsya discovers some strange artifacts of Loxodon origin. And Tohs, do you remember what they are?
Oh, one was a symbol of the god that I follow, whose name I can't remember because I don't have Tohsya's character sheet in front. Praetor, who's like law and order and like kind of like Athena-esque. And then there's another one that looks like it is a pair to the object that represents Praetor. But I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. I believe I told you that it was an eagle and an albatross. I'm not sure if that's spoilers.
Yeah. And we established that...
The eagle is Praetor.
Yeah, and I rolled a pretty good religion check. And you were still like, you don't know who this is.
Yeah. And the eagle is made out of ivory and the albatross is made out of bone.
Bone?
Yeah. So on the...
Sick. Slay.
Yeah. Woo! On the way out of the mountains, Tohs gets the distinct sense that they're being watched, but isn't able to roll high enough to find out what that feeling comes from. And Morgan tried...
And it was fine.
Nothing bad happened, right?
Yeah, we were totally fine.
Exactly.
All good. Morgan tries to speak to Calacta once more, but is met with silence again. And then we came on to Navrosh, which is where we are now. When in the city of Navrosh, they meet Lyra Opulensis, their government contact for this leg of the journey. She explains the ghostly activities have been happening in 3 main locations: the sports arena, the theatre, and the shopping centre. After fighting ghosts in 2 of these locations, the party learns that the ghosts are warm and staticky to the touch rather than cold. Raina successfully manages to communicate with a ghost, who cries out that they...
Oh my god, I've just realised something about this adventure.
What?
The places where these ghosts are appearing presumably are where the majority of the power is being sent.
Oh, yeah, you got it!
I thought we explicitly said that on the podcast.
I don't think we explicitly said it.
We linked that they were like electricity beings and probably something to do with the power generation, but we hadn't been like, that's why it's these locations.
Yeah, they're going to have the most electricity, aren't they? Anyway.
Yeah, they are. Apart from like a hospital, but that would maybe a bit morbid to do it in.
We'll let Ellie continue the recap, and then this will make sense for people that haven't been listening.
Raina successfully manages to communicate with a ghost who says that they've been pulled from somewhere else by her, but doesn't say anything more descriptive. The party kind of...
And we were all like, that's Lyra Opulensis, and Ellie was like, not necessarily, and we were like, yes it is.
The ghosts, some of the ghosts feel like they have no choice but to fight back. The party discovers a secret message in the sports arena with a location and a meeting time. They head to the meeting point and make contact with Olwen Flint, our first Patreon NPC. Woo! And Pikelet, a pair of electricians who basically noticed that something fishy is going on. This city is the first in the world to generate electricity from arcane sources. However, the power grid has recently undergone development to access even more power from a new mystery source. The group resolved to break into the power plant and discover more about this power source and how it might relate to the ghosts. After successfully charming the guards, sort of, the group have...
We did it! It's fine!
We did do it. It's going to be really interesting when Charm Person wears off.
Go listen to the episode.
Yeah, that's just the episode, the 12 Water, episode 62. So if you want to listen to that, that's worth listening to. If nothing else, for NPC Jeff, who I love.
Jeff is my favourite. You also get to hear my really good skill of, you see, in improv, I'm very good at continuing to talk. However, I don't have a lot of thoughts in my brain. So some really crazy stuff comes out, and that's what you get to hear in that episode.
Yeah, insane. So now the group have an hour to make their way through the high security into the heart of the power plant, and they're currently locked in a deadly battle with a giant electric eel, which is intent on making them dinner.
It's fine.
It'll be fine. What's it going to do?
Everything so far.
And that's where we are.
That's
our entire
goal.
podcast, guys.
That's everything so far, and that's taken us literally 30 minutes. I'm so sorry, Chloe.
It's either this or we put the entire thing on fast forward and condense like 60 hours into 30 minutes. How many that's like an hour and half a minute.
We have done three years worth, guys, of podcasting.
God, really?
This is it? Wait, are we at the end? Are we at the end of year 3 or the beginning of year 3?
The end of year 3, because we started in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
So that would be year 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done 3 years of this podcast. So it's and it feels
it's been the length of over half of my relationship.
Oh, what the hell? And we have
Good Lord.
We have spent a lot of that time messing about and making stupid jokes and going on tangents, but we have also done a lot of content in that time. So, like, little round of applause for us! Yay! Woo. Now I'm going to hand back over to Chloe to take the reins for the rest of the episode.
Thank you, Ellie, and I'm going to suppress the urge to do a stupid American newsreader voice.
Don't suppress the urge.
Do we have American fans? I don't want them to hate us.
Hey, I've had American podcast friends compliment me on my American accent. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's our entire podcast, but it wouldn't be our podcast without the main characters, without the player characters that we have exploring the world that we have created together. So, starting with Am, because that's the way we always do it.
Should we go in?
Do you want to give us a quick little like description of Toz? Maybe going into a little bit more detail than Ellie did there.
Absolutely. I think I'll talk a little bit about what was kind of in my mind when building this character. I think might be kind of useful. I play Tohsya. She's a Battlemaster fighter and a Loxodon. As I said on the other podcast Chloe and I do, RWD, I'm really not beating the furry allegations because my current PCs are a Loxodon, a werewolf, and a Harengon, a rabbit folk
In your defense, elephants are famously not furry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think of what because I think it's for like lizards and stuff. It's scaly, but I don't think that skinny is the appropriate.
Oh, maybe not.
No.
Yeah, Tohsya is definitely not skinny. And when I was building her, one of the things that I really wanted to do is, without obviously getting too heavy for a fun little podcast, I am a plus-size person who has struggled with self-image and my relationship with food a lot, and I wanted to create some real positive fat representation and to not be afraid of weight and mass and taking up space. And that is something I wanted to be really positive about Tohsya's character. Like, it is good that she is big and beefy. It is good that she is sturdy and can take damage and is wide. And it's something that is not only good in the context of the podcast, it is something that is, like, good in her culture and where she's from and part of her story.
Coming useful.
And that's something that was kind of really important.
And we love her.
Yeah. It was something that was really important to me.
Yeah.
When I was making her. Yeah, there are a few things I kind of wanted to look into with her. One of them was I was really keen to build a character who is explicitly flawed, not in a way where she's like edgy or bad or like has any of the kind of, you know, I'm a loner or like I did a murder or like very, very kind of overly obvious, I guess, faults. Like, you know, she's a very lovely person, she's heroic, she's kind, she has a lot of great qualities. She also, like, comes from a rich family and has not really observed or, like, thought about what that means for her and who she is as a person and what that means in terms of her role in society. And I wanted to create, you know, a character who had the potential to kind of grow as a person, especially with characters like Raina in the party who come from poverty and can turn around and kind of tell her when it's not on.
I do find it really interesting. I think surprised me is one of the big themes of our game that hasn't had anything to do with the plot is kind of attitudes towards money, because we have 4 very different attitudes
money
towards
and class.
Money in the party. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I want to kind of not be afraid of that conflict. Yeah. So when I talk about how Tohsya, you know, thinks of the police as something that is good for society uncritically, or when she doesn't tip well, or when she is kind of naive about the experiences faced by her teammates, that is kind of, I want to be very clear, that's not me saying it's something I agree with or I think is good, but I want to create dynamics and conflict that aren't necessarily you're evil, I'm good. Like, I'm really interested in exploring nuance with her character, which is something that I've also kind of, without telling too much about her backstory, something I wanted to bring in, because I don't know if we've kind of been explicit about this. Tohsya doesn't have a great relationship with her family, but they are not secretly evil or, like, you know, Machiavellian or like like, you know, like evil stepmother kind of like fairy tale stories. Like, her family love her very much and try to do the right thing and what is good for her, but I don't want it to be a story where your family is either bad or good, and if they're good you have to agree with them, and if they're bad you have to disagree with them. I want something complicated and messy that feels real.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit?
And also I exclusively play melee classes, that's why she's a battle master.
No, my question was actually going to be, do you want to tell us a little bit about where Tohsya's from?
Oh yeah, Ellie and I had a really fun time creating, Gaimaris, which is the city where Toz is from. It's a moving city, kind of inspired by Mortal Engines, and also one of my special interests is animals, so I like to learn a lot of facts about animals when I am playing a, like, animal-esque character. So elephants will graze in herds and they'll move throughout grazing spots throughout the year, and that's something I kind of wanted to reflect in the city building. So Gaimaris and other Loxodon cities are moving cities, like in Mortal Engines. They kind of move about throughout the year to use the natural resources around them.
They also take part in, like, epic battles against each other as, like, very much is just part of the culture, right?
Yeah, that's something that I kind of wanted to bring. Is part of my family's heritage is Scottish. That's why Tohsya has a Scottish accent. And I think it's really important to, especially if you are someone like, I obviously can't speak to my my Welsh castmates, but for me and Chloe at least, someone who is from the UK, I think it's cool to turn around and look at your heritage and explore the kind of history behind that. Like, I'm English, but my family has Scottish heritage, and that's something I'm really interested in looking at and learning about and bringing into my characters. And so, you know, one of the things of my family tartan and motto is Feros Ferio, which means I'm fierce with the fierce. And I kind of wanted to bring this attitude of like honor and nobility that is something that is kind of respected by also the Loxodon cities will engage in these like battles and stuff, but it's not, it's like a chess match, right? Like, it's not something that is life or death levels of
they're
aggressive.
not trying to harm.
They will fight, and then and then once the fight is over, they will all, one will be invited to a huge banquet at the other city and be like, that was a good fight, you did a really good job. And there is underhanded ways of dealing with things like torturing prisoners and treating your prisoners badly and poisoning people, and espionage are like very, very taboo in Loxodon society.
It is interesting you say that though, because Tohsya's mum did die on a battlefield, if I recall correctly, when Tohs was 14, and so that's an unusual circumstance.
Yeah, people do, I want to be clear, people do die in their conflicts, but it's not seen as, like, Tohsya's not going to turn around to the side that her mother was fighting in that conflict and be like, you killed my mother, I will swear revenge on you forever. She'll be like, you killed my mother, I'm sad my mother's dead, you fought honourably, she fought honourably, the best soldier won the battle.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the attitude that they have.
Cool. Which is real food for the therapist, if you think about it.
It's very common when war is on like a smaller scale of conflict. Like, if you look at a lot of medieval skirmishes, they would fight in their heavy armour and with their heavy weapons, and then they would take a break because they were all tired, and no one would try to kill anyone.
Or they would just not
side.
attack because it was raining, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like that very old school, like, Northern European aesthetic that I think is like very foundational to Loxodon society. Yeah, I had a lot of fun making this group, and I have a lot of fun making Tohsya. She is very complex and layered, and I am excited that we get to explore lots of different things about her.
She is, and we love her.
We do.
She's a sweet girl. She needs to learn about how the world works.
That's why.
Me at the ripe old age of 25 and her at 19.
But that's why she's going out to adventure, right? It's so she can experience the world and learn those things.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I realised after talking about this that I did kind of take inspiration a little bit from Keyleth in Critical Role.
Yeah, I see that.
But yeah, on her Aromantic. But yeah, so Tohsya is, I'm not going to talk about like the way nobility works in Gymeris because it would take half an hour. But essentially, Tohsya is much like the British House of Lords. There are inherited titles in seats of government, and she's set to inherit the title of basically like Lord of the armories, and so that would mean she would be like the general of the city. She would be dealing with looking after the armed forces and making battle strategies and talking about, okay, well, I think we should fight this city, I don't think we should fight this other city. And as part of that, after her mother died, she left her a letter encouraging her to go and explore the world around her, to basically, because all she's ever known is basically growing up in comfort in this one city. She thinks it would be basically like good for her as a ruler to experience other things in the world.
I think in a lot of ways, Tohs is kind of like those kids that go to private school and then they go on a lot of really like expensive holidays to lots of locations, and so they think they're very worldly and cultured because they've travelled a lot. Like, they've physically been to lots of different places.
You're just talking about me at 19 years old, girl.
Maybe I am. What of it? But like, yeah, and then like the difference between, like, you can have you can never left a country, but if you I think like someone. I don't want to say Raina necessarily, but I think Raina's maybe a good kind of
He's
parallel
worked for a living.
where Raina hasn't travelled a lot, but she's had a lot of experience, she's worked, she's been around a lot of different people, she's had to, kind of use her know-how and savvy to get around in a way that Toz hasn't yet. Or that Toz is just learning
Absolutely.
to.
I want to be very clear that a lot of Toz's flaws are flaws that I saw in myself when I was younger. I think that is kind of like a fun thing to play with.
It's a very fun thing to explore.
And think about. And I also really like that Tohsya has a lot of parallels with the other characters in the party. Like, her and Morgan both have this rich background, but Morgan's from a crime family and Tohsya's from a family who's very big on honor and nobility, but in some ways they're not as real and straight up as Morgan's family.
Not what I would use to describe what's going on over in Canterbury.
Tohsya and Raina, I think, are both very, blunt, honest, good people who are kind of the party's moral compasses. And I think Delphi and Tohsya both have this complicated relationship with their parents as well. That I think is really interesting that they have all these things in common. But I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to stop talking.
You've got lots of cool stuff to say. It's good.
I love her so much. Thank you.
Since I started in the correct order, although it feels a bit weird because I'm facilitating, I'll go next.
Yeah, go next.
Yeah, well, I can help a little bit with this in terms of prodding you with questions and stuff.
So, Raina Riffwood, who talks with a Cockney accent of questionable quality.
Oh my god, I love her. My sweet girl.
So she is a tabaxi, she is a bard, to start with, at least.
She's actually secretly a warlock, but we haven't had that confirmed yet. That's my theory. I do this thing with quite a lot of my PCs in that I really love the vibe of warlocks, but I just, for some reason, I never want to actually play
accidentally
a warlock.
making warlocks.
So I just kind of...
Oops, all warlocks.
Yeah, I just kind of make the warlock vibe in another class, and that's what I've done with Raina. But essentially, more importantly than being a bard, for Raina, she is a sailor. That is her work. That is what she has grown up doing since she was a child, because she grew up on the streets with her mother and her little brother Seth. Her mother died when she was quite young. Never knew her father, I believe, unless I wrote that down somewhere and forgot about it, which is quite possible.
It's a fun little thing for Ellie to play with later.
And she left Raina nothing but her flute, which her mother did not play, but always carried with her for some reason that she never explained. And so Raina kept this flute, didn't learn to play it because she didn't have anyone to teach her to play it. But her and Seth both pulled their weight, learned how to sail properly, and became sailors. This was, however, 70 years before our story takes place. Raina is 19 years old. There is interesting maths that don't work out there, because as Ellie mentioned, on a particular mission to investigate this little island, Raina fell through some kind of magical, crystally pink hole. That's... God, I hate that sentence. I said it and then...
it like a portal.
I said it without any... just meaning it literally completely fine, and then I went, oh my god. But anyway, Raina fell into this hole, and since that point, her memory has been particularly fuzzy. Doesn't particularly remember much.
She has never known peace.
She has never known peace, no. Until she emerged on a beach outside of Attis Orbis, the city where she grew up, just before our story began, which she gradually learned to be 70 years in the future from where she...
Am I right in thinking that she turned up on the beach covered in blood, or am I misremembering that?
Ooh. Okay. I don't think so, but I feel like there was something. I don't think she was covered in blood, but there was something. But I can't remember what. You'll have to go back and listen to our, first trailer to hear that.
First episode, yeah.
Yeah, so Raina, when I when I was making Raina, I'd only just started playing D&D. Me and Ellie had only just started playing together in a home group, and so I only had like, I want to say 3 characters before that. I'd never played a different game. Well, I played lots now. I'd never played a bard, and I thought this is the perfect time to play a bard because I am a bard in real life, and also because I actually do play the flute. Yeah, I could play that on.
And we had a bit of a home rule because the people we play with on the regular are by and large performers, some of whom who have musical abilities. We had a kind of not anymore, but we kind of had an in-game rule for a while that if you played a bard and if you wanted to do something like give bardic inspiration, you had to play a little tune
or perform in some way. Ellie did slam poetry.
Yeah. Oh my god,
One day we'll make you do
bad
some poetry on this podcast. It'll be amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I decided to play the bard, and I remember actually quite struggling with who Raina was going to be to start with. I decided I want to play a bard, I decided I want to play a tabaxi and all of this, and then I couldn't quite get like a character together. It wasn't really coming to me. And then of course we used we didn't mention our cards, which is like the whole point of the podcast. But I'll mention it now.
One day.
So, as I said at the beginning, everybody's past, present, and future is determined by a card drawn from the deck of many things. We won't share the past ones because I don't think they've been publicly shared.
We can share them now. It's a good time to share them.
I mean, we could.
I think without Eiriol here,
yeah,
I don't think that's fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But my present card was the moon, and I thought, okay.
My present card is strength, just for...
There we are.
Right, Ellie?
Your present card was the comet, wasn't it?
The comet, which means strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I looked up, because I don't really engage with tarot. It's not really my thing. I enjoy it. I just don't. I've never been like a part of it. So I had a little look at what the moon card does in D&D, but also what the moon card represents in tarot, because I was like, this might give me some inspiration. And one of the things that jumped out.
Do you want to share what the moon card does in D&D as well?
So it lets you cast wish. I can't remember specifically. It's like 1d3
1d3 times, yeah.
For those who don't know, wish is the most powerful. Yeah, the most powerful spell in the game. It can let you do anything you want.
So I had to do something drastic. So I Captain America'd her, with the idea being that she kind of wished herself out of wherever it is that she was. I'm not going to say, because I don't think we've actually explicitly said it, but I think it's very obvious at this point.
It's been very heavily implied, but I don't think it's obvious either.
So I'm not going to say. But yeah, and one of the things that jumped out to me was that the moon is very often associated with motherhood and with fertility and things like that. Now, for various reasons that I won't get into, I really did not want to play a parent or a mother. I really didn't want to do that. But I do, and I do this with pretty much all my characters since I started playing TTRPGs, is that all of my characters have some kind of and I don't know what this says about me, they have some kind of need to protect the people they care about, like to the point of their own like destruction, where it becomes a problem quite often with a lot of my PCs. And so I liked the idea of having somebody that Raina could like care about in that way. So instead of a child, I was like, what if Raina had a younger sibling that she essentially raised, and that way I don't have to play a mother, but I can still cover that kind of part of the moon card and all of that. And then I got a little bit carried away, and I was like, this is... I remember saying to Ellie, all of my characters so far have been really sad, and I would like to play a happy character.
A fun and happy character.
How that turned out.
And then I wrote this backstory, which was inherently tragic, because the Raina's one big thing, and it's literally on my character sheet as the bond, is that she wants to find her brother. because they are separated and she now doesn't know where he was. The only information that I have so far are a couple of things that are quite important, actually. Actually, you missed this out of your recap, Ellie. The first one was in the recap, in that Captain Sterling, who was one of Raina's old captains, told her that Seth had retired a few years prior. That's expected. It's been 70 years in the future. He's probably an old man. Fine. But later on, when we were on the ship on the way back from the island, Raina, I cast sending to Seth to see what would happen.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
I did this a couple of times.
I can't believe I didn't include this. That's so silly. This is a major plot point. Oh my god.
This was one of the things about Raina, because I held off on that for a while, because Raina is she's a little bit skittish because she grew up on the streets. You know, she's got to be careful about when and how she does things. And I think she has this whole image of, like, I just find my brother because this is this big thing, and it's such a big thing that she kind of puts it off.
You don't want to open Pandora. You don't want to open Schrodinger's box and find that the cat was dead all along.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, ultimately, what she was scared of is that she would cast this spell, she would cast sending, and she would get no reply. The most likely explanation of that being that Seth was dead.
Yeah.
But she did get a reply, and it was worse than that. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah.
Because it appears... it appears that... Yeah.
Chloe, just tinfoil hat moment from me. Do we know this means he's not dead? Is he perhaps not in the Nine Hells?
I mean, that is a possibility, but I don't think that sending works like that.
It does other planes of existence. Wasn't that like a big thing about that?
It does, but like death in D&D is a bit weird because it's like, yes, they go to another plane, but it's not like...
I think it probably says in the spell that it won't reach them if they're dead, because otherwise people will be using it to do necromancy or, necro talking all the time.
Exactly. Because it's like you go to another plane, but it's not the same. Like, it's not physically the same person, if that makes sense. Like, it might be your soul, it might be reincarnated, or it might be in some other form, or, so it's a bit, I don't really know. There's a lot of D&D lore. I know about 1% of it. But yes, Seth replied, I asked him where he was, and he replied that everything hurt and he was really scared and he didn't know where he was. And it turns out that he's in some horrible, horrible place, probably on another plane of existence, because Ellie always gets me to roll every time I cast sending.
Metagaming.
And we don't know where he is. So at the point where we are now, Raina's in not a brilliant mental state, because not only does she not know where Seth is, she also has no lead to go on, so has basically left it in Bastet's hands, which is weird for her. She's not used to sort of relying on other people, but she kind of has to in this place. Oh, she's a rogue now. Yeah, that was it. The last time we leveled up, so the way Ellie levels us up is we get 2 levels every time, because we only do it once a year.
Oops.
So we do 2 levels every time. So instead of taking 2 more levels in Bard, we're all now level 7.
9.
I took 2 levels in Rogue. So, you're right. We're level 9. Yep. So I'm level 7 Bard.
You may be level 7.
I'm level 7 Bard, level 2 Rogue.
Webster, can I have level 10?
No.
Webster.
Gotta fight this eel first.
Lol. So the idea of that was, it wasn't particularly that I wanted Raina to be a rogue, it was that I wanted to illustrate her, attempting to kind of forge her own path and step away from whatever has been going on with this weird magic stuff, because she couldn't play music before. She was not a musician before all of this happened, and then she just came out and was like, I guess I can play music now. This is weird. But who knows?
That's how being gay works.
That's how
you come out and then suddenly you gain musical abilities.
Yes.
Do you?
That's what happens when you lose your memory and end up in a weird place. You just can randomly play music after that. Yeah, so I thought that Rogue fitted because of her background of growing up on the streets, and also just it was something that she could learn herself and teach herself.
That's such a cool way to think about it. I'm playing a rogue in my home game for those exact same reasons.
I love that. We are the same.
We are the same.
Oh, yeah, and Atis Orbis, where Raina is from, Catgirl City, as we call it, is not a nice place, particularly for Raina. At least it's a plenty nice place for people like Bastet, probably, because the Tabaxi are the like horrendous capitalists of this world.
I'm not quite sure how that ended up happening, but it has happened. Yes,
I think it was me because
cats like luxury.
We created this world using the Dawn of Worlds system altogether. And as part of that, there's like a bit where you can get civilizations to like fight each other. And I was the only one that instigated that because it was a bit complicated and we didn't really understand it. So yeah, I was like, I guess the Tabaxia capitalists now, they have a huge navy and they're going to go attack the elves. Yeah, so Atis Orbis for Raina is like she struggled a bit at the start because that's where we started. And obviously everything looks quite different, but it's like, it's always been a city of two halves, and now it's even more like the gap has widened, and so you've got all of the nice bits.
It's Manchester, jeez.
I was gonna say, Chloe, can I ask you, is there any like real life cities which you think had like influence on your inspiration of Atis Orbis?
I don't think real life cities are more just, and this sucks, but more just like the way the world is, or the way that this country at the very least is now. I don't think about real life cities as influencing it, especially because it's full of cat towers.
Yeah, the architecture isn't like a close parallel to a real life city.
The port kind of aspect of the town.
Cardiff Bay?
I was inspired by a little bit like by Cape Town because that is still a working port and it has.
Oh, you know what? I totally see that.
Yeah. But Cardiff Bay, in terms of its history, is I think very reminiscent of Catgirl City because like on the bay front, it's all chain restaurants and luxury apartments, and it's very like, you know, beautiful lights on the glittering water, and then you go back 2 or 3 streets and you're in Riverside and Docks and Grangetown, and they are like much more deprived areas of Cardiff that like get a really bad rep and are like kind of left behind in a lot of ways, and historically were really important meeting places for the POC population of Cardiff, and also queer people and sex workers. So like a variety of people that are kind of looked down on by the capital facing part of our culture.
Yeah.
So I think, a lot of Cardiff Bay is a fascinating place. Also, it used to be called Tiger Bay,
which is a good name, I've got to say.
There we go.
Which is a great name for a catgirl city.
Yeah, I mean, I think Am already said all of the things to say about her like relationship with Raina. I think it is really interesting. We're absolute opposites, and it comes across like a lot in terms of background, that is.
Yeah,
I think in terms of personality they have a lot in common, which is very sweet to me.
Yeah, I think it is like they both have quite an inbuilt sense of kind of justice and what is right and what is wrong, so for the most part at least.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello, you lovely lot. It's me. It's only Chloe. You know the drill by now. It's break time. Go get a drink. Go get a snack. Look after yourselves. But in the meantime, you might consider listening to little old me, because I'm here to tell you ways you can support our lovely little podcast. The best way you can support us is by joining our Patreon. For as little as £3 per month, you will get a shout out on the podcast and access to our Patreon-only Discord. Plus, there's a bunch of other tiers on there with much more exciting benefits, like access to our bonus content, our side quest episodes, for example. You can have access to DM notes and character sheets. You can get your own personalized message right here in the middle. Woo! And you can even have the opportunity to play TTRPG with us, with the cast. And we're basically celebrities at this point. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You can find that at patreon.com/Deck of Many Aces. Be sure to check it out. You can even join for free and get updates that way. Of course, if you're not prepared to pay per month, you can always make a one-time donation to our supporter Acast link, which is right there in the episode description. Today's promo is for How Not to DM. How Not to DM is a podcast where your host, Derek, will talk to a new guest every week from the TTRPG community about how they got into gaming, their highs and lows behind the screen, best advice for new and aspiring dungeon masters and game masters, and, of course, their amazing work and projects. It's a really cool, fun podcast to listen to. I personally love their quickfire chaos minigames. They come up with so many cool ideas, and I've definitely never ever stolen one for my game. No, never. I would never do that. Derek talks to so many cool and interesting guests, and season 4 is well underway, so it's a great time to jump in. There's plenty of back catalogue to enjoy. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. I love you all. Thank you for listening to me. Bye. Katie, how about Morgan?
Morgan.
Tell us about Morgan.
Morgan. So, like, back when I first started playing D&D, I sat down and told myself, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to play a wizard mad scientist. Because that kind of felt vaguely appealing to me in the sense of, you know, there's a whole thing where people's first roleplay character is basically just them with a funny hat on.
It's a self-insert.
It's a self-insert. I was like, I'm not going to play a self-insert. I'm going to do someone who's completely different from me. And I did play a character who was completely different from me. It was this really, like, plucky, perky druid who could barely read and liked socialising and all sorts of stuff. And she was great. And anyway, she was great. And then I did some other stuff with, again, very different characters. And then Ellie was all, hey, come and be on my podcast, come up with a character. And I vaguely came up with Jacob, who was the character who ended up coming on the Spicy Forest one-shot, who was originally a bit different then. I think he had something to do with a younger brother, and I vaguely pitched it at Ellie, and she said, someone else has already got something with a younger sibling. And because he was very vague. So
oops.
He was very vague and I wasn't attached to him, so I just kind of shelved him. And so I turned to the other character concepts. So then I ended up coming to Morgan, who had just kind of sprung fully formed, and she was a mad scientist wizard. And then she just came into my head, and then I just had Morgan. I can't do character building. Just one day a character appears, it's just vibes. I don't put any thought into the backstory beyond much at all. I can't come up with dramatic plot lines and secrets in the backstory. They just come up fully formed with their current personality, and that's who they are, and I gotta take them or leave them. So Morgan turned up one day.
Can you tell us a little bit about the present card that Morgan has?
I'll go through Morgan's stuff. The present card is the ruin card, which basically means you haven't got any money. And all of your like property and holdings that you might have in the game would be gone. For what I mean to Morgan is that in fact the family has come on hard times. The family, which used to have a lot of money, now no longer has any money. So it's a bit of a change for her. She's at least partially coming out and doing some adventuring in order to get some cash together. Previously she was working as an academic, as a wizard scientist, studying time magic and basically physics. So she's got the wings, and the wings are a big thing for her. And I'm trying to be not... Like, I don't want to make this as... Like, trying to be some kind of not particularly great metaphor for a real-life discrimination. I'm not trying to do it like that. But it is this... Having these wings, there's a lot of complicated history with the elves and the tieflings and the changelings, and there is a lot of distrust on the elves' part of the tieflings generally, and anything especially that seems unusually weird. So the wings kind of just are a massive thing about that.
because there's only been a few tieflings with wings, right?
Yeah, it's not unprecedented, but it is extremely rare.
Can I ask a universe-building question about tieflings?
I may not have an answer.
I know, obviously, we decided they are their own, race out, because I know in the original D&D sourcebook, tieflings are, they just pop up randomly, and then sometimes they propagate. But generally, tieflings will be born to human parents.
Yeah, these are weird tieflings.
Universe. And my question was, are they still, if Tohsya makes a deal with a dark devil, is there a chance that she have a
I would
kid?
say
Or is it just,
probably no,
only...
but the exact origin of the tieflings as a people and what that may or may not have to do with any extraplanar entities is up for whatever.
Ooh!
I mean, we've of course homebrewed everything to death in this, so it's right now the tieflings are their own distinct group of people, and they have their own distinct society with a lot of tension with the elves, and it's very weird. So within the tiefling society, there's a whole bunch of social pressure about proprietyness and properness. Pressure to be outwardly proper. I was thinking very much when I was coming up with this, I was thinking the kind of vaguely fantasy idea of what Regency era, with the kind that you see in fantasy novel, or not fantasy novel, in romance novels, where it's all not quite how it actually was, but the very properness and the extremely formal manners and the upstanding social upstandingness pressure. And then on the background, there's a whole bunch of dirty dealings and business sneakery and backstabbing and poisoning and forging of letters and spying on each other, all sorts of stuff. So Morgan spent quite a bit of time as a kid, trying very hard to do everything she could to make up for the fact that she was weird, basically. Didn't really work. She was very, very good at the academic side of things and magic skills, but that's not what her family valued. And the social side of things, was not something she was particularly good at. So yeah, she's basically ran away to become an academic, went up to the city of Braw, out of Antiborough, and has hung around in Braw since then, doing nerd things.
Becoming very, very clever.
Becoming very, very clever, although not as clever as she thinks she is. She's very blunt. Yeah, she wants to make some money to help the family out. She also wants to make some money to kind of stand away from them. And also vaguely wants
I understand that.
To the reason she got into time magic as a kid is in Antiborough there was this great flood that did destroy a lot of things, and it's the whole place is kind of partially submerged, partially in a way where it's livable, in Venice or Amsterdam, and partially just things are destroyed. So she's grown up around these things where time has definitely taken its toll, and the idea to be able to do something about that on the larger scale, not just rebuilding things but undoing things, definitely was in her head. Of course, that's a very large thing, but that was kind of the thing that she was staring at as a kid and thinking a lot about.
I do think though, particularly when you're younger, you have these very large concepts and things, and you have the kind of thing that you're going to do to fix it all, when in reality the thing that you're going to do is actually it might help, but it's not going to fix it all. You
decide you're going to be an astronaut as a kid, and you end up in fact going through very precise astronomical data for 15 hours on end, and it's not unrelated, but it's also very much digging through minutiae of little things compared to the big and dramatic stuff. And that's where the real work happens. But it's,
I feel like Morgan's a bit like that, in that she's I've got my thing that I do really well, and I'm going to use that to like you say, to help the family to get more money in and all of that.
And she does like to discover stuff and show off her own cleverness, being able to be the best at time magic and have everyone talk about how good she is at it. not an unrelated motivator.
Mm-hmm. It is nice to have everyone talk about how good you are.
Talking about Morgan's super duper clever magic. Do you want to tell us about Green?
I got a familiar. Its name is Green.
Yay!
Green is a hyacinth macaw, which is a blue type of parrot. For anyone who cares, it's using the Raven stat block, so it can do the kind of mimicry thing, which I wanted. The Raven didn't feel right, so I changed it to being a parrot, and it's very great. I love it. I don't actually love it. It's a not entirely a normal thing. It is not exactly a normal familiar, but in a way that I think may forever remain a noodle incident that gets alluded to and not discussed. The vague vibe is that it was something that did not used to be tame, but Morgan captured it, and now she's bound it to her, so it is kind of along for the ride. But it may be not necessarily always happy about this fact.
I always this is not in the kind of original conception of Green as a character, but since we started this podcast, I have read Eiriol by Garth Nix, and there's
I love that
the
book.
Cat.
Yeah.
I can't remember the cat's name, but
those
the fact
books.
that it.
But I picked up enough about
there's
that cat via Tumblr osmosis that I know what you're talking about. That is not a direct inspiration, but it's also not a bad comparison.
It's the cat's like this weird eldritch being that has just been kind of contained and is sort of begrudgingly helpful and standoffish in the way that cats can be, in this kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I'll deign to help you, but only because you're sort of slightly incompetent without me. And I think Green has some of that energy sometimes.
Whatever it is, it's not quite a normal familiar, and it's, yeah.
Although Eiriol couldn't be with us for the time of recording, we've asked her to record a little something telling you all about Delphi. So here it is. Enjoy.
Delphi came about because of two major things. So firstly, I really wanted to play a warlock. I personally love the kind of eldritch horror warlock, the one that's like more about the not really knowing what the entity that you've made this deal with really wants, whether they're good or evil, whether they are either of those things, what they are aiming to do. You don't know that, and that was super compelling to play with, and I really wanted to play that. And then when we did a world building session, and when we did that, I was like immediately in love with the grow folk, which I like. When they first started out, they were just like tree people. We wanted and they were very nondescript. They lived in what was originally called the Spicy Forest, which is why we always call it the Spicy Forest. That was the original name, and then as we all figured out more of the details of the lore, it got expanded upon, and I really fell in love with that and took it under kind of my purview to make the grow folk a thing, and playing a warlock in that, it was interesting. It meant that I could play a character that was weird in some ways because they were a warlock. They had this patron, they would do things that they didn't entirely understand, they knew things that they didn't entirely know. You see that a lot, especially later in the show, that Delphi just starts knowing things, and it's so much fun because it firstly allows Ellie to just tell me stuff and get me to be the character, get my character to be the one that just pushes forward the story in case that needs to happen. Doesn't always need to happen. Plenty of time we are pushing forward the story, but sometimes it's really helpful to have someone who can be like, you're not going to get this, here's the answer. And it works so well because of the nature of Delphi's patron being this just kind of weird otherworldly entity that's non-specific, and at this point is just a vibe that happens but is also the thing that I love about the Delphi, which is Delphi's patron, is that they are obviously incredibly powerful, but they don't ever use any of that power in any perceivable way. So it's this really nice oh, this is this character that can just do stuff, and you're never going to know why or what or where or whatever. They're just potentially doing things all the time. And I wanted to make a character that could be weird because they were a warlock, but also weird because they were this very secluded culture and area with a completely different way of life, both because of they're a different culture and they have different cultural values, but also because they have an entirely different physiology that means they function in an entirely different way. I thought a huge amount about how the grow folk physiology works, not in the sense of how do their muscles work exactly, but how do I want them to feel? I didn't want them to feel slow like the Ents from Lord of the Rings or anything like that. I wanted them to feel like people, but people that had this fundamental difference. So they're not a capitalist society in any capacity. They have no real sense of money or anything like that. They have a much stronger sense of community than certain other cultures in that place. So that was super interesting to play around with, as well as there's a load of me and my friend. I will put forward my friend as being two of my friends as being a major part in helping me figure out what I wanted from both that race and also that character. And it was this idea of the way they see their bodies is very different to the way that we see our bodies as humans. It was a way for me to explore body modification in a fantasy setting rather than a cyberpunk setting or any of those things. And I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but there was an interesting idea I had of certain grow folk who wanted to be able to protect others. They would use weapons and things, but also they would get steel balls embedded in their knuckles in a really simple process that was painful but not horrendous, just inserting them over on top of the knuckle. These kinds of things, jewelry, becomes a very different thing when you're growing around that jewelry. So yeah, sure, you might have an ear piercing, but what you're probably more likely to have is a piece of metal that runs through the tree. And one of the interesting things is that it probably wouldn't actually be steel, because steel would rust. You're looking at things like titanium, bronze, copper, all of these metals that they may rust, they may degrade, but they're not going to so in real life you have iron poisoning from steel and iron in trees. So if you cut down a tree and it's got a nail in it, you'll see these black marks that run through the tree, and that's because the iron has caused the tree to die. Whereas with other things, that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's really interesting. It was just this kind of really compelling idea, the growth up in general, and I really wanted to take that and pull them into it so I could play hey, this is a weird character because they're a grow folk, and then over time be they're also weird for a grow folk. Other grow folk find them a little weird. They have left the forest, which very few people do. They have decided to adventure outside, and on top of that, they've decided that to kind of abandon their family to a certain extent, and all of these other things. And we had Delphi's sister in it, and it was this is such a wonderful character. I love them. And we've had Delphi's dad, and there's so many things about Growth. I could talk about them for literally hours. I adore them. But Delphi themselves is that embodiment of weird for one reason, weird for another, and then weird in both contexts. The thing that's really important for me with Delphi is that Delphi doesn't know anything about what their patron wants until they are informed, and that happens on the podcast 90% of the time. There are a couple of things that Delphi does know, but most of them Delphi doesn't, that she has no idea. And the things that she does know, she's not telling because she sees no reason to. And it's like, Delphi is not a perfect character. Delphi is far from a perfect character. They are so fundamentally flawed, but they're flawed in a way that I find really interesting, rather than being flawed in a way that I find that some characters can be. And it's still fun for the players, and it's still be fun for the GM. But I personally find less interesting, which is they're flawed because they're bad people. So they hurt people and things like that. Whereas Delphi is flawed because they believe certain things that aren't necessarily true, and they have chosen to do that despite what might not be the case. Like there's loads of stuff about Delphi that's really interesting and compelling, and I love playing them as a character. Like, I wanted to play a warlock, and then the Growfoot turned up, and I immediately went, cool, I have a character perfectly set out now in my head. And just like over time that got expanded upon in such a lovely, wonderful way that like it's just beautiful. Give me that good stuff. Like, I can talk about Delphi for ages, but some of it I can't talk about because it's secrets between me and Ellie, and other things I can't talk about because I just can't. It doesn't work like that. I love them, and I can't wait to play more of them. I can't wait for them to do something awful. That's my main thing, is I really want to see them do something absolutely horrible, whether that's to the party or to someone else or whatever. But I'm like, Delphi has to fall. It's the one big thing that like is going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know any of those things. That is up for Ellie to decide as well as me, but like that's up for the GM, and it might not happen. You know, you never know. Delphi could be absolutely perfect in every conceivable way, but they're not. I'll tell you. I'll give you the secret. Listeners, Ellie, turn this off. They're gonna fall. They're gonna have something go horribly wrong. Like, they've already had things go wrong. It's gonna go bad.
Way before this adventure began, her kind of interest was splicing plants together, so kind of like putting different kind of parts of plants together in different contexts to see if they can thrive outside of their native environment. And so she was kind of traveling around with her dad, and conducting these experiments and doing kind of discoveries. So she came across her crystal in a sleepy little village just outside of Shrukti, I believe, which is a kind of a lizard folk settlement. She woke up one day, everything was totally normal, and the next day she woke up and the entire town was disappeared, gone.
The buildings or the people?
The people.
The people.
So everything else remained.
I remember this story.
Yeah.
When we were told this.
The people were all gone, and
well, they weren't gone.
Well, there was only a couple left.
Were they dead? Were they all?
I thought there was a pile of bodies.
There was two bodies.
There was not a pile of. Yeah, there were two bodies.
Okay.
So the two. Yeah.
How many bodies constitutes a pile? How many do we need?
So,
is 3 bodies a pile of bodies?
I'd say at least 3. Yeah.
At least 3. So Delphi, when she walked through the streets, she found these 2 figures, and their bodies were kind of like lacerated and damaged in some other way that was sort of unrecognizable. And in their hands, they both held this crystal, and she kind of had a compulsion to pick it up, and so she did, and it's been on her person ever since. So Delphi is a warlock, not by trade. I don't know many people who are a warlock by vocation. It's mostly a kind of an accidental thing that happens. Delphi is has this crystal which kind of functions as a sort of pocket dimension and a weapon, and she doesn't really know what her kind of purpose is. She knows that the entity that has bestowed this crystal to her is called the Delphi. The Delphi is not a god in a traditional sense. They are kind of like a being. As such, there's very little like literature or information about them. Their full title is the Delphi of the Keys and Crossings. Aside from that, Delphi knows very little about what they are doing and what they are searching for. They know that there is something to do with a key and a lock, and that's basically it.
And that's what Raina and Delphi have bonded over several times, actually, in the podcast, is they're both just something weird's going on, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, those two are the sort of weirdery ones. I think that Delphi,
Morgan and I are nice and normal.
Yes, quite
normal.
Nice and normal.
Absolutely.
No fishy stuff going on there.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, I actually, even before you guys had played the characters, I do, and I have this as a habit from playwriting, which is I put all of the characters and I put their relationships with each other, and I put their kind of what their similarities are, and what kind of things they can have to kind of connect over. And for Delphi,
a ship diagram, but instead of the relationships, it's just likes books and.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for both Raina and Delphi, I've put weird crystals.
Weird crystals.
Good, and power.
Weird crystals.
And power that they don't understand. And then Delphi and Morgan, I think, are both they're academically minded in very different ways.
That's cool though.
I think Delphi has a kind of curiosity about the world that is academic, but their approach is completely different to Morgan's, I think.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about Delphi is that she is incredibly intelligent, but Eiriol does such a great job of playing it because she comes from a quite insulated, that's not the right word, isolated society.
Different
society. Yeah. So because Delphi hasn't really had much experience with the wider kind of society that we exist in, sometimes she comes across really dumb because she doesn't understand something like money, but
there was a point where you guys met the mayor of a town, and she was like, "Isn't that a type of horse?"
Yeah, exactly, things like that. But
also,
does such a great job of
different
it.
language.
Yeah, it's because that's all it is. It's not that Delphi is not intelligent. She's very, very intelligent.
She's an int-based warlock, I think.
Yeah, she is an int-based warlock.
She is an int-based warlock, yeah.
So she finds those moments of, no, this is where Delphi knows exactly what she's talking about, and this is where Delphi wouldn't have a concept of it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
I think.
Yeah,
I was
very
funny. So, for all of you, I had I sat down with everyone, and I had character chats with people, and the thing that was similar across everyone's is I put in your past, present, and future cards. I talked to you about kind of what you wanted to get out of the characters and what you what kind of themes were important to you. And then I also, I did have a look at tarot cards, and particularly for your future cards, I kind of found parallel tarot cards to the Deck of Many Things cards, and I picked out sort of prescient quotes. Now, I won't tell you those quotes, but the other thing that I did was I picked quotes from literature or song lyrics that I felt were particularly.
Oh my god! Yay!
Yeah,
this is so fun.
So some of them I cannot tell you. Am, I think,
copyright
surely already knows hers.
Yes, I do.
Am already knows hers.
I don't.
And
tell us
spoilers.
Is Am's let this whole town hear your knuckles crack? Because that's on her playlist.
It is not. Am's is a quote from the Bell Jar about the quote about the figs. And
we brought
looking
that up
at
in
lots of different futures. Yeah,
one of the episodes is called
We've
The
definitely
Fig Tree after that.
It is something that I actually kind of quite comfortingly felt a lot when we started making this podcast, and much less so now that I'm sort of a grown-up, question mark, about feeling this kind of pressure about what it means to do important things.
Yeah. And notably, the quote that I chose for Delphi is in all caps lock. If the zoo bans me for hollering at the animals, I will face God and walk backwards into hell.
Backwards into hell.
Tweet.
Thank you, Drill, for providing this stuff to the internet.
Drill, thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant
but I feel like that's
to wrap up on.
Yeah.
Oh, can you tell us the other ones now, though?
I definitely can't tell you Raina's.
Can you tell me secretly Raina's?
No.
Don't like that.
Well, I mean,
that's a threat.
I can and I could, but it wouldn't actually be a spoiler, but it feels like it might be. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not.
We'll find you a Drill tweet.
Do you want to hear? Do you want to hear them?
Only if you want to share them. I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will. So for Morgan's, I've got two, but the one I prefer, and I don't even know where it's from anymore. The one I prefer is, maybe it's Night Vale. The past is gone and cannot harm you anymore, and while the future is fast coming for you, it always flinches first and settles in as the gentle present.
That's definitely Night Vale.
Yeah, that's why. And then Raina is the chorus of Little Lion Man by Mumford & Sons.
Yay.
So it was not your fault but mine.
I know why you can't say that.
And it was your heart on the line. I really effed it up this time.
Messed it up.
Didn't I, my dear?
The radio edit is messed it up this time.
Messed it up!
It is.
Oh!
It is messed it up on the radio edit.
I really messed it up this time, didn't I? Yeah, I won't give you any more about Delphi. That's maybe a note to end on.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I do want to end the episode just on a big old thank you for everybody that has been listening so far. You're all great and super uber mega cool, as you hear me say every episode. And
also, I mean, obviously we love this podcast and we would, keep making it no matter what. But I think if like two people were listening, I would be like kind of disheartened. So it's really nice that you're all here and listening and engaging with us and talking to us about the podcast and are excited about it as we are. That's really nice. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Yay.
And there are loads of ways that you can show your support. #promo. Essentially, there are so many ways. We love our patrons, who are Nate Scott Jones. I'm going to doing this off my memory now. Nate Scott Jones, Ouroboros, EK Green, and I don't know what the Patreon name is, but I know in the Discord they're Wheels.
It's Piers Wilkinson.
It's Lightning McQueen, obviously.
They are super awesome. We are jazzing up the Patreon a little bit this week, in fact. So if you fancy checking that out, I believe, I haven't actually fact-checked this yet. I've just been told it on the grapevine, but I do believe Patreon are beginning a kind of trial thing where you can try out Patreon for free for a certain amount of time. So do go check it out. There's loads of cool bonus content that we're going to be making and we're putting on there all the time. Of course, we still have our support to Acast link open for donations. If you want to just do a one-time donation, it really, really helps us run the podcast. But of course, there are loads of ways you can support without money as well. And the best way you can do that is to leave a review. We've got loads of lovely reviews. Honestly, it makes my just month when I read a nice review that I haven't read before. Because I can't, I don't think there's any way to get for me to get like notifications of when someone leaves a review, so I always forget about it, and then I go and look at it and I find like 2 or 3 more that I haven't read, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh.
Also, like, so nice. if you don't want to leave a review, like, tell people about the podcast. Tell your friends. Tell your nan. Tell your neighbour. Because that's another way that you can help us grow, is to get us into more ear holes.
Yeah.
Please don't say ear holes.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have an ace week.
Bye.
And happy Ace Week 2023.
Happy Ace Week.
Woo! Woo! Deck of Many Aces is Am Chisholm, Chloe Elliott, Eiriol Evans, Katie McLeod and me, Ellie Webster. Thanks to our patrons Piers Wilkinson, Nate Scott Jones, Ouroboros and EK Green for their continued support. If you love what we do here, please consider leaving us a review on the podcasting platform. on the podcasting platform of your choice. If you can't, you can use our Podchaser page, which is podchaser.com/Deck of Many Aces. We really appreciate it, and we read every review that is left for us, so yeah, if you can, we'd love that. Thank you. You can find us on social media at Deck of Many Aces on Twitter and Instagram, and deckofmanyaces.tumblr.com on Tumblr. You can also reach us by email at deckofmanyaces@gmail.com. If you love the music on the show, you can listen to almost the entirety of the original soundtrack on the music streaming platform of your choice, including Apple Music and Spotify. All of it is written by the lovely Chloe Elliott, who is available for commission if you have any composing needs. Where else can you find us on the internet? Good question, we're everywhere. The best place to find us all together is on Rendezvous with Destiny, where we've got Am and Chloe playing a Bite Marks actual play podcast. We've also got Am on the Date Night Drive-In with her partner Will. Chloe is on Twitch at Chloe_with_the_flow, and we'll let you know about any other podcasts that we're a part of as they develop. As Chloe mentioned earlier, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Deck of Many Aces. There are a variety of tiers that you can join up for. We've really appreciated the support that we've had so far with the Patreon. There's loads of kind of cool extra content, or if you just want to ping us a small monthly donation, then you also get access to our Discord, where we randomly post stuff in the middle of recording without context that you get to read back later and be like, that's what that was about. If you can't manage a monthly donation, that is totally fine. We also have the Acast supporter link. That's supporter.acast.com/Deck of Many Aces. That's like an online tip jar for a one-off donation. Of course, you are not obligated to pay us at all. We are a free podcast and we always will be. And if you can't support us financially, then supporting us on social media and by leaving a review is also fantastic. That's all from me. It's been a big one. Have an ace week. Bye!